Welcome back. Let's turn our attention now to the State Capture Commission of Inquiry. Now, frustrated Deputy Chief Justice Raymond Zondo yesterday reprimanded the inquiry's legal team over a defective summons that was sent to former Eskom and Transnet Chief Financial Officer Anoj Singh. Singh was present at the commission but did not testify due to incorrect wording on the summons. And Zondo has given Singh until the end of business on Monday next week to file a comprehensive affidavit. Now, Singh has been linked to dealings with the Gupta family. Let's discuss with political analyst Sandile Swana some of these developments now. Sandile, good morning. Thanks for being with us once more here on Morning Live.
Thank you so much. Good morning to you, Sakina.
So, the Commission's legal team messing up royally there, and as the Deputy Chief Justice himself says, that summons was fatally flawed that was sent out to Anoj Singh. What's your thoughts on that?
I think the final decision by the Deputy Chief Justice Zondo demonstrated his thoroughness and his brilliance in that the defense team for, or whatever you want to call them, the legal team for Anoj Singh had not raised this issue at all, that in fact they've been called to the commission to come and answer on something that does not exist. It was not part of their case at all, and none of the two teams on either side had raised the issue, and Zondo picked it up himself and actually dealt with it quite thoroughly, remembering, of course, that the advocates Kakane of Jacob Zuma had previously said his client had been brought to the commission on false pretenses, which means you can tell somebody to come to the commission for one thing, and when it gets to the commission, you are dealing with another thing, and misleading the person that you've invited to the commission. So Zondo handled that masterfully.
And as you say, the summons speaking to an affidavit that had not yet been deposed by Anoj Singh, but the legal team basing their questioning for yesterday on said affidavit that does not exist. And looking at Singh's legal team, and he has changed legal teams, of course, now, they've been given until next Monday to file that comprehensive affidavit. What do you make of that in terms of the interest, whether it's in their interest given the current confusion that played out yesterday around Anoj Singh and the affidavit?
No, it certainly is in their best interest, more especially the new legal team. When things become legal, the detail itself, the detail of the facts, the details of the allegations that are coming against your client, you need to have answers for everything ahead of time, preferably. You don't want your client trying to answer things on the spot. So their thorough preparation will probably aid the commission. I think that was a good suggestion on their part, and what they are going to do, I'm hoping that they'll come up with something really good.
So, Eskom-related evidence being heard by the Commission this week. Earlier, day before yesterday, former Eskom CEO Machela Koko appearing before the Commission. And again, interesting things coming out of his testimony once more. But what stood out for you?
I think the issues that are coming out is the, would you call it, conflict, first of all, between what would have been said in the parliamentary inquiry. You'll remember that there was a parliamentary inquiry, a full parliamentary inquiry on the Eskom issue. So people like Koko testified there, number one. So those issues of what did I say in parliament, what am I saying now, make very interesting. Which minutes were there, which minutes were not there. Therefore, what I'm saying now, what do I base it on? Which documents am I basing on? And one of the biggest things that I think is going to be interesting going forward is what did the minister, Lynn Brown at the time, actually say? What did she direct the board to say? Were her actions on her own account, were her actions actually lawful? Were they in favor of good governance? Because that is the part that the cabinet, the previous cabinet and the previous parliament and the previous president and deputy president have not yet assisted us to understand whether their own actions were actually fully legal.
And then the Commission also provided some detailed evidence showing that Koko had sent several emails to an info portal address which actually turned out to belong to Salim Essa, who's said to be a Gupta associate. Now, Koko last month denied at the Commission that he had met with the Guptas and their associates, but he claimed that he thought that that email address belonged to former Eskom chair, Dr. Ben Ngubane. What did you make of that? You know, an Eskom CEO sending emails to an anonymous email address, if you will.
Yeah, your last comment, exactly. If you are performing your formal duties as CEO of Eskom, why would you actually involve yourself in sending emails to an anonymous email? Because the people that you are dealing with, you deal with them on a formal basis. So all that we can say about these things, such as the denial by Koko, is that we must all accept that from now going forward, from this year 2021 going forward, we are going to see the implicated persons using every trick in the book to try and get off the hook. They are in the hook, they are in the eyesight of the long arm of justice, and they are likely facing prison terms. So they will use every possible device to escape.
And then Sandile Swana, his name also coming up. He's, of course, the outspoken Black First, Land First leader. And the Commission sending him a notice saying that he will be implicated by an anonymous witness. What do you make of this, given Sandile Swana and the role that he is alleged to have played, you know, in terms of perhaps more than anything, his proximity to people who have testified and are said to have been close to the Guptas?
I think, first of all, we have to understand, number one, that Sandile Swana was close to the Guptas politically, and he was almost like a stormtrooper of the Guptas. Now, for what? What would be the reason other than also being sponsored by the Guptas at some point or the other, in one form or the other? And that is not a unique problem for Sandile Swana, because, to be sincere, almost every political figure in this country is being financed by one business consortium or the other. The only problem is that the particular consortium, which is the Gupta consortium, that Sandile was being funded by, is at the moment in the spotlight of the law.
So looking at some of the evidence still to come, Sandile, more and much anticipated evidence to be heard today. Former Acting Director General at the Department of Public Enterprises, Matsietsi Mokolo, and also the Trillion Financial Advisor, Masilo Motepu, are expected to give evidence. Now, Motepu is, of course, a whistleblower who exposed some of these dealings around the allegations of state capture. If you remember, she testified in December that Mohammed Bobat, who was appointed special advisor to Des van Rooyen when he was when he was Minister of Finance, and it was said that he was supposed to ensure that Trillion and Regiment's Capital got privileged inside information around tenders. She said that the two companies told the state-owned entities what to do, even though the SOEs were their clients. So what do you expect to come out of that, and how is this going to assist the Commission with its work? And finally, what most South Africans want to know, in the end, where's all of this going to lead to?
I think, I saw a report, I can't remember whether it was yesterday, in fact, on the issues you are raising now, that the Regiment's Capital and Trillion and those guys, and McKinsey for that matter, there was a Treasury report quite a long while back that detailed their dealings, and there were findings from Treasury that these people were actually behaving irregularly. So what is happening now is that, and I've been thinking about this, with all these testimonies along these lines, is that, yes, these things have happened, but these things happened when Section 86 of the PFMA was there, and all kinds of regulations were there. There was a president, there was cabinet, there was all kinds of oversight. What are we going to do after this? Because we've seen irregularities continuing even after Zuma was ousted out of power. So we will wait with bated breath to see what recommendations are being made in terms of improving the governance. The facts of these matters are unknown to the public, but the facts of these matters are well known to the state, including Treasury and the Auditor General.
And just staying with that point, the Commission, of course, supposed to conclude its work in March. It will ask for an extension, especially just to complete the report, as the Deputy Chief Justice, who's the chair, had indicated. But we are still seeing delays in affidavits, delays in summonses, as we saw how the summons was messed up yesterday by the Commission's own legal team. And then you have the SIU, the Hawks. We've seen some arrests. But the point that the public wants to see is that people are actually put on trial and convicted. We're not seeing that as yet.
Yes, anything, whether it's a criminal matter or a civil matter, once something has got to court, I usually estimate 2 to 5 years before it is finalized. Investigations, arguments, and all those things. So the people who have been implicated in the Zondo Commission, it's going to be a long process for them to actually go to prison, if we want to put it that way. What is of immediate interest is for us as the public to be assured that all those loopholes that have been used to collapse governance in the country and to collapse national treasure and to collapse the economy, that those things are actually administratively being dealt with by the executive and the malfeasance is being stopped. And that is the part that can be done quickly. And that is the part that is still lacking. It is lacking. You saw it in the PPE tenders.
But are we being realistic? Do we really expect these things to happen? As you say, you made the point earlier about Parliament, ministers, the executive, all being present around these issues unfolding. Many of the protagonists, Sandile, are still in Parliament. They are still ministers, be it in different portfolios. They are still members of the executive. So are we not expecting a bit much? It
depends where you're coming from. My view is that the first problem that the major political parties especially have to resolve here, my view is that the reason so much corruption happened in South Africa, it started with the silent agreement between the National Party, the DP at the time, and the ANC, that the ANC itself is going to be funded through state tenders. In other words, they don't have money, they must siphon money out of the national treasury. Through one means. So the ANC coming out of exile is going to come and live in South Africa illegally on a day-to-day basis. That's where the whole thing started. Then the lifestyles of the cadres came in and so on and so forth. Everybody knows that the funding models of our political parties and how people, even the so-called private sector, funds political parties enhances, accentuates, and promotes corruption in South Africa and the collapse of good governance. That is the topic that needs to be discussed now and resolved. Otherwise, all the other issues stem from there. That is the big root, the taproot of corruption.
We have to leave it there, Sandile, but thanks so much for speaking to us. Sandile Swana, talking to us about the Commission of Inquiry into allegations of state capture and some of the evidence led this week. Well, let's take a break and we'll have news for you shortly after that.